The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on estimating in 3D. My name is Chantal, and I'm going to be your host today as we discover this topic together. I've traveled all over the world, training different lumber yards and different people how to do estimates in Envisioneer software, and I'm happy to show you some tips and tricks today as we start doing that. For our webinar today, we will be looking at Envisioneer and bringing in a PDF and showing you how you can extract materials from that original PDF that you created. So let's get started. I'm going to go up to the File pull-down menu, and I'm going to choose Import and import a PDF. We import a lot of different types of file formats, PDF, CAD files, or even just a JPEG. The formatting is the same. So I'll be using the PDF procedure, but just know that if you brought in a CAD file, it would be the exact same, or a PDF or a JPEG file. So I'll import a PDF file. When I import that PDF file, I'm going to be looking right out onto my desktop, and I'm going to be bringing in a PDF. When you bring in a PDF, the important things to note are the information about the PDF that you received. People can make PDFs in different ways. They could just scan in a document, or they could get it directly from a CAD file. Because those are two different methods, PDFs, and those are two different formats that you could be bringing in. So we allow you to bring them in both. Down here at the very bottom, I'm going to uncheck this to convert this from what was originally brought in as an image file to an actual vector PDF that I can zoom in on and manipulate and snap to when I'm doing dimensions. Another thing that we can do is we can rotate this PDF. Right now it is sitting on a portrait style on my screen. I'm going to rotate that, and I'll just click in, and you can see as I rotate different values here, if I say 270, what all happens to that PDF? It rotates it in the right direction for me. Another important aspect when you're bringing in an initial PDF, what's the scale? We can never really trust that PDF that you're bringing in. They might have written down the wrong scale. So I'm going to zoom in on a known dimension here that they've put down, this 10-foot dimension. I can calibrate that PDF and scale it correctly using this button right here called Pick the Scale. If I click on that Pick Scale button, I can left click on one side of a known dimension and left click again on the other side, and then tell it what that dimension is. It's 10 feet. If this scale factor changes, it automatically calibrates and rescales it for you. Mine's coming in at a 1/4 inch equals a foot, 1 to 48-inch scale. I'm going to zoom back out using the zoom previews. Another thing that you can do when you're bringing in a PDF is just bring in what you need. So I'm just going to crop around the area of the PDF that I want, just that ground floor plan. I don't need the title block or the elevations. I can have that printed out and on my desk or on another monitor so I could be looking at it. All I'm really truly tracing over at this point is that one PDF. So that's all I want to bring in. Another tool that we give you when bringing in PDFs to make it easier for you is dimming. I can dim down that PDF so it's not as intense on my screen. So as I trace over top of it and highlight walls that I've included in my Takeoff, it'll be very obvious which ones I have done and which ones still need to be done. So I can dim that down to any percentage that I want just by moving the scale factor back and forth here. Once I have it at the dimming percentage that I want, I've double checked that scale, it's rotated in the right direction. All I have to do is hit Insert, and a copy of that PDF will attach itself to my cursor, and I just left click to place it on my screen. Now that it's here on my screen, it gives me the ability to be able to take off the different elements that are part of this plan. The walls, the doors, the windows, the columns, everything that we see here. First of all, I'm going to magnify it on my screen. I'm going to use this zoom window tool so everybody can see it nice and big during this webinar. I'm going to start my initial estimate by looking at the walls. I'm going to do an estimate of the walls to begin with. When I pick on that Walls tool, the catalog panel to the right of my screen will update, and it'll show me all the available walls that I have that I can use for my Takeoff. So I have some 2x4 brick walls, some stone walls, some vinyl siding, cement board siding, stucco. And as I click on these elements, so I'm going to use this 2x6 cement board siding and move my cursor into the drawing screen area. What I'm telling the software is that I'm going to be doing a takeoff based on the layout of this plan using 2x6 cement board siding. And I'm going to trace around the floor plan that we brought in by a baseline. So what I do is I move my cursor close to one corner. See, as I moved my cursor close, and I'll do that again, my cursor changed to a circle with an X. That means it's snapping to that corner. So as I move my cursor to that corner, it's going to snap to it. And then I'm going to start drawing a line around the outline perimeter of this floor plan. So I just left click on the corners that I want to include in this takeoff by just coming up and selecting on those corners. Once I've left clicked on every one of those corners, I right click and tell it that I'm finished. So I've just traced around that floor plan exterior walls. And then I tell it that I traced around the outer face of the veneer. When I picked, I was to the very outside of those walls, to my siding. If I picked to the inside face, I could tell it that I was tracing around the stud line. So depending on that PDF that you bring in and the information that's there, maybe it doesn't show the siding, maybe it's just showing the stud walls. This little dialog box allows you to change that depending on what you've traced. And then I click OK. It highlights the walls that I've created so far in my takeoff. Gives them a nice bright green color. I already know the materials that I need for these exterior walls. By going up to Tools, Analyze, Generate a Project Estimate, I can see what's already part of those walls. I'm just going to expand this out so everybody can see it nice and big on the screen. I have my exterior wall framing. I have the nails that I'll be using, the sheathing, and the stick nails. I have my wall framing, the plate material, the studs, the blocking in those walls. I know the house wrap, sheathing tape, staples, cement board siding, and the nails used for it, insulation, vapor barrier, staples for that vapor barrier, my drywall, the tape and compound and screws used for it, and primer and paint to do that wall as well, and trim. I'm going to need 131 linear feet of trim and my gallons of paint. And then just general measurements so that I can double check any of those values as well. So just by quickly importing a PDF, picking a wall from my catalog, and picking corners where they occur, I already get that much material. Now in that report, you saw studs at a pre-cut cut length. How did it know the height of those walls and the stud length? Well, up here under Settings and Building Locations, we pre-populate that information. So when you start a new project, you come in here and tell it the height of the walls, the ceiling, and the floor level. So when it's putting in the walls and it's laying out those studs along those walls, it knows its height and it knows to grab that pre-cut stud. So I'm going to take a look at one of these walls so we can see the background information. How did it know what vapor barrier to use in drywall? If I select one of the walls and right-click, I'll look at their properties. So that wall that I grabbed out of that catalog is far more intelligent than just saying a 2x6 cement board siding. It has a lot of information packed behind it. It knows that it's a framed wall. And because that it knows it's a framed wall, it has a framing member attached to it, a 2x6. If I click on that framing member, that 2x6, it even has information behind it. The most important part of that lumber is these purchased items. It lists all of the available lengths for that 2x6. And each one of those lengths has rules. That 92 and 5/8 stud, that pre-cut stud length, can only be used for a stud. This 8-foot piece can't be used for blocking or plate material. And these are, again, pre-cut studs, can only be used for studs. If I look at my 16-foot board, I can use that for anything. So every board length can have rules. So if you know that you want a mix of 12s, 14s, and 16s for your plate material, let them all be used for plate. But if you only want it to be your 16s, set a rule for the 14s and 12s, they can't be used for plate. So it knows what lengths of lumber to grab when it's creating that material list. It's grabbing the stud lengths, the plate material, the blocking, all from the rules that you set for that board. It's already been done for you in Envisioneer. Under the trim tab, I can also associate trim to both sides of that wall. So on the outside of that wall, I have my exterior surface trim. So I know if I punch a hole in the wall for a window or a door, it's going to wrap this PVC trim around it. And every window is going to get this sill material. Lots of different trim options available for the exterior and the interior sides. So on the inside, there's my baseboard. We saw that already in the material report. It wrapped around all of those walls. So it automatically gave me that 113 linear feet of baseboard that I need. Under the quantity tab, this is where we assemble all of the materials that we're going to quantify every time we go to build this wall. So when I drew those lines for that wall, it automatically gave me the cement board siding, the OSB and house wrap, the drywall, all of the materials assembled here. So if you don't quantify or need to quantify the drywall, just remove it. That could be part of your default catalog that you never use drywall. But if you need other materials, you can edit these buckets so it has the materials that you're using and that you need to estimate. Let's punch in some windows and doors so we can see how that can add in as well. I'll click on the door tool. Now my catalog panel to the right has all different types of doors available to it. So I can grab a door and left click to place it into the model. If I know I need it to be in a very specific spot, so I'm going to grab an entry door here, a 36 steel door, and I want it right in the middle. I right click, I can say center on wall, and it will automatically put it in the center of that wall for me. So we can left click to get them in quickly. A hole in the wall is a hole in the wall, and the materials are going to be the same. But if you also want to create diagrams from these, you can put them in very accurately as well. We can also put in windows. I'll grab the window tool. Catalog panel to the right now has different windows. Now with windows, these can be your stock window sizes that you have, or they can be just a generic size. So I'm just going to put a couple windows in here, place them in to cut the holes. And then let's look at the information behind a window. So the window also has a quantity tab that I can say include this in the quantity. This is a window that I want to order. But if your windows are generally special order skews and you just need the hole in the wall so you can get your header material, your jacks and your kings around it, and you don't need the window, you can say not to include it. So this actual window unit won't be part of my material list, but the hole in the wall will, and I'll get all of those materials. So if you stock windows, make sure you include them. If you don't, uncheck them. You get the hole, but you don't have to worry about the window coming into your material report. I'll hit cancel there. So now that we've got these windows and doors in, let's take a look at our material report again by going to Tools, Analyze, Generate a Project Estimate. Now our material list expands. We can see in our wall framing that we now have header material, cripple studs, jack studs, opening sills, all because we punched the hole in the wall for those windows and those doors. And if I scroll down near the bottom, we'll also see that we have interior doors and trim. We'll start to see the door that I put in, the jambs for those doors, locks, anything that you quantify at the same time you put in a door or a window, you can assemble those materials together so that they're always added in. So if you need shim material caulking around those windows and doors, that can automatically be formulated and added to the material list every time you punch one of those into the walls as well. We can also, I'm going to throw some interior walls in here so that we can also use openings. So going down to the walls again, I'm going to click on a 2x6 load-bearing wall, and I'm going to put it right here and trace it down all the way to the bottom. Every wall in the catalog can be a different color. So now I'm going to put a 2x4 wall in coming through here and see how it's blue. And these ones are green and these are a darker green. That's a trigger to you as well when you're doing your estimating that that's a different type of wall. So if I know that I have my exterior walls as one color and they're 2x6, but my 2x4 interior walls are a different color, they can all trigger in my mind something that's different. Or if I'm doing a bathroom and I need to use a shower area and I want to denote visually on the screen that I'll be using Type X drywall or a cement board in that area. That could have a different color as well. Also notice that when I clicked on this wall, dimensions appear. I just left click to get it in quickly so I could quickly get that as part of my estimate. But if you want this to be a true diagram, you can click on these dimensions and change them. So I'm changing this 11 foot 11 dimension to 12 feet, and that automatically moves that wall. So everything can be moved and updated as well. And in those interior walls, I can punch openings in as well. So I could tell it that I need a 3 foot by 6 foot 8 opening coming between my dining room and the kitchen, and I need a 5 foot opening coming between the dining room and the living room. Everywhere that I put an opening, it again cuts a hole in the wall, gives me header material around it, and my jacks and my kings. That will update automatically into the material list. We also do structural floors, so I can pick on the floor tool. I can tell it that I'm using 2x12 floor system with 3/4 inch OSB. If I double click on that catalog item, it'll show me all the materials that are going to be taken off as soon as I inserted that into my drawing. So I know that under the general properties, it's going to put the joist at 16 inches on center. They're going to be lying horizontally on my screen. And when the joists hit a bearing point, when I tell it that there's a beam coming through, what happens to those joists when it crosses over that beam? Right now I'm telling it to stagger, overlap by 1 foot along that beam. Or I could tell it to hold back. So if I was using hangers, as it came up to that beam, it would hold itself at that beam so that you could have the different layout for if you were using hangers instead. I have my joist material, 2x12s. I have my sill plate, my band joist, my rim joist, and see how these are all highlighting as well as I move around and change the selections. So it gives you all the materials that you need to frame that floor. So I'm just going to click OK. And then I just move my cursor inside my plan that I've drawn so far and left click. My joists automatically get laid out in my plan. And then from there, I can audit that and change that layout if I want to. I had mentioned putting in a structural floor, inserting a bearing line where I want a beam. I'm going to left click here and here to say there's a beam. See how those joists automatically overlap? I'll show you that again. I right click and tell it that I want to insert a bearing line. I left click once where I want to start that line of the beam and again where I want to stop. It automatically overlaps those joists. So if I again look at my material report, tools, analyze, generate a project estimate, all of those joists and floor framing materials now come into my material list. It put the sill plate automatically here, my 2x6 16-foot lengths and my 12-foot lengths. And then under my floor system, I have all of my floor joist materials, my subfloor and my adhesive as well. As we add more and more things, it automatically organizes it into the groups and adds them into the material list. That's also the same if I was putting in floors and ceilings. So if I came to my ceiling, I could do ceiling by room. So each room can have its own ceiling surface. So I'm going to put a 2x6 framed ceiling in my dining room. And then I'm just going to use drywall in the rest. Now, if I come into this 2D designer's view, I can see my ceilings. Right click on the ceiling, look at its properties. I can instantly make it a tray. Not only do I have the materials for that tray, but it's going to frame it as well. Let's visualize the model in framing. View, framing, display the framing. I see all my floor joists. I see the ceiling framing for my ceiling and my walls. But I have a better way to visualize that. I'm going to come down here to the 3D view and go into a 3D perspective view. In this 3D perspective view, I can visualize all the framing that I put in so far. I put this into a rendered outline view, so that might be a little bit better to see. You can see the cut openings for our doors, the header material going over top of them. You can see how it framed that tray ceiling in our dining room. It automatically frames everything for us, following the rules that we set in our building locations information. We told it was an 8-foot wall, We can also give it framing options. I told it to frame it 16 inches on center with a double top plate and blocking, and it followed that rule. If I double click on that, I could tell it to frame it in an entirely different way. I could tell it that I just need 16 inches on center with a double top plate. And then when I click OK and OK, it automatically updates and takes away the blocking. But what if, walking through here in our kitchen where we're going to be hanging the cupboards, I need some blocking in those walls. I need to edit these walls to change that. I can come up here to framing mode and pick those particular walls that I want to change and tell it that I need to frame them in a new custom way, that I want them to be 2x6 on center, but I want them to have blocking. And when I click OK, they now have blocking in them as well. And that will be part of my material list again. So getting out of this framing mode and going back into framing, we can see the framing on those specific walls and everything else is different. That's also the same for our openings. What if there's a point load coming directly down on this doorway and I need to change the header? I don't want it to follow the rules. I need a different header there. I can come in here to framing mode on off again, pick on that one opening, look at its properties, tell it I want to use a custom head sill jamb over that one opening, and tell it I need a 9.5 PSL header. Click OK, and it's done. If we look at our view, framing mode off, and view, framing, display the framing, we can see our new header. So although we can quickly bring in a 2D PDF and trace over top of it, it's doing a lot more than just tracing over top of it. It's virtually framing that model, just as you would in laying out all of the walls. The added bonus of that, if I come up here to Tools and go to Wall Panels, every one of those walls can be broken down into an individual wall framing panel diagram. So I can frame each one of these and send that diagram out on site so they can see exactly how to frame it. Each one of these. And there's options available for the panel configurations on how you're going to put in any kind of marks and everything like that for them. And you can change all of those dimensions and everything that you need to as well. So full panel diagrams for each one of those walls. So if I insert that panel as an individual drawing, that can be printed out. So imagine being able to provide this level of detail when you're doing your material list. Not just providing materials, but this is how you frame it and put it all together. And here's the studs that you're going to use and the cuts that they need to. Here's all your plate material and the lengths that they're going to be cut down to as well. All of that detail from simply bringing in that simple PDF and tracing over top of it. I'm going to get rid of the framing now by saying View, Framing, Display All But the Framing to go back to our traced over view. We put in the walls, we put in the floor, the ceiling. I'm going to put a roof on this as well and pretend this is just a simple 2D plan, a bungalow. I'll go roof by perimeter. Catalog panel over to the right again updates and shows me the available options that I have for roofs. I'll choose an 8/12 hip roof. Move my cursor inside, left click once, and it automatically creates an 8/12 hip. If I left click on the overhang that it created, you'll notice that arrows appear. Each separate surface has its own arrow. That arrow holds information of pitch and plate height and style. So if I click on an arrow, you can see that it turns green. A green arrow means I want to edit and change that arrow. A red arrow means that that arrow is not ready to be changed, that I'm keeping it at its 8/12 hip. But these two right now, if I right click and look at their properties, I can change them. If I wanted those two sides to be 5/12, everything else is an 8, but my sides are 5, I can change that. If I wanted them to have a 2-foot overhang on those two sides, I can change that. If I want them to be gables, I can change that too. And everything about this roof is going to quantify. All of the shingle material, the sheathing material, all of the different roofing components, the felt paper, the drip edge, the flashing, the ice and water shield, soffit and fascia materials, the roofing nails, all is going to appear in that material list. And because this roof style is going to be rafter framed, I'm going to get the rafter material, the fascia, the ridge, the hip boards, and all of my gable framing, all included. If this was going to be a truss, I could change my support and details instead of rafter to be truss, and then it would eliminate all of those extra boards. But let's see them. Let's frame it as a rafter framed roof so we can see all the extra materials it's going to give us as well. I click OK. Now my roof has been converted automatically to a gable running side to side. Let's see that in a 3D view again to see exactly what it did. Now we can see that roof all over the side here. I'm just going to change this view to be a rendered view so we can see that. There's our roof. If I come in here to view, framing, display framing, we see all the framing that goes into that as well. View, framing mode on off. We'll turn on all of those walls that we can see them, and then we can get those on. If the design also has dormers cut into it, ours didn't, but I do want to show you that. That's very simple to do as well. We can come over here to roof, dormer roof. Now I can describe the dormer. I've got a 5-foot dormer. That's a 412 hip roof. It can be any slope. I can change it to my 8. And my dormer walls, I'm going to want those to be, let's put them back with our cement board siding again. We'll do a scallop siding. Click OK and OK. And then I just point to where I want these dormers. So if I want one here, another one here, and another one here, I've got 3 dormers cut in automatically. And we can see those in 3D, and they will be part of my material list as well. All of that information, the roof, the dormer walls, everything gets included. So if I come back here to Tools, Analyze, Generate a Project Estimate, now we can see that we've got even more information populating into this list. As we look down in our list, we can see our roof information. We've got some tally information coming through for the rafter boards. We've got our ridge board, the nails, the subfascia, the valley framing, ridge, hip framing. We've got our drip edge, our aluminum flashing, our shingles, our ridge cap, shingle starter, all that information because it was packed in to that one simple thing that I picked from my catalog. All of this information gets tallied up. So how do I get this information out and share it with other platforms? So perhaps when I did my floor framing, maybe you use a different service for that. I can export this model out and share it with Weyerhaeuser, CSD, MyTech, if you're doing your roof trusses, Boise BC Framer, Keymark and Simpson. So you can share this information. Because it was built as a 3D model, they'll import that 3D model and use it for the basis of their floor truss systems or their roof trusses. You can also see that I can send this out to 2020 kitchen design. So if I'm using at my showroom 2020 for kitchen design, I can take this whole model, send it out to 2020. They'll design the kitchen and I'll import it back in so it becomes part of this model so that I can estimate it as part of my whole house package. And I can visualize and see that kitchen right here in my model as well. We also can send this model, this whole report out to your point of sale systems as well. I'm going to go to Tools and Analyze, and I'm going to generate a quote. When I generate a quote, it's going to take that material list that I was forming. Right now, it's just telling me that I put no prices to anything. Just give me a warning. And it's bringing me into this spreadsheet look of all of the different materials that I created when I traced around that simple PDF. All of those materials in that same format that we saw in that project estimate here now. The added advantage of bringing it here into our quote generator are multiple. One, what if I want to change something? So I'm going to scroll down in my list here, and I've got all of my different elements for the different finishes. I'm going to come down here to trim. I'm looking at my casing. I just put a default casing in there. What if this project called for a different casing or baseboard? If I right click on that, I can substitute that product change it to something else in this report. So I've done that whole model. I'm ready to do an estimate on it and send it out to my point of sale, but they've come along and said they want to change the trim. I can just substitute it very easily in this list and change it to be something else. I can also print off reports from here as well. So if I click on this report button, that'll take this information and put it into a professional looking report. So I could have this quote sent out. You could put your logo in there, your address, and have all of the information that was included right down to the total price. Or I could have a pull list sent out to the yard of all of the different materials that we have to pull for this particular project as well. That can be edited and changed. So if I just wanted to have my door material, I can uncheck everything here and then say regenerate the report, and all it gives me is my doors. So depending on the audience that you're providing this report for, you can edit the information and change it too. Then I can export this report out. I'm going to hit File and Export. I give it a name of what I want to call this. So this could be the Jones Project. And then I click OK. Then this is a list of all the point of sale systems that we link up with. You might recognize the point of sale system that you're currently using. We can directly send this file in a format that your point of sale will recognize and be able to use. So I'll just pick one. I'll use BizTrack as an example and click OK. It's going to come up and put all of that information into a report format that BizTrack can read. All I have to do is hit export, and then it'll export it out in that format. Now you can bring it in as a quote, or you can bring it in as an order. I would say 99% of the people bring it in as a quote so that you can massage that information once you get it inside of your point of sale. So we're formatting it in a language that your point of sale can read. It saves it as a file, and then you import it into your point of sale system. So from that one simple PDF that we brought in, by clicking on these simple tools, walls, left clicking on the corners of where those wall corners are, clicking on doors, dropping a door in everywhere we saw a door, window, same thing, grab a window, left click where it's going to reside in that model. It cuts the hole in the wall so I get my framing materials around it, and it can also add that window or door to my bill of material as well. Floors, all the flooring material you need, or export that entire model out if you're using an engineering software to do your floor and roofs. We put on the roof and the ceiling and very quickly manipulated it and changed it. All that value-added information. Not only can we break that down into individual wall panel diagrams as I showed you, but this is a 3D model. And because it's a 3D model, I can place my camera anywhere inside it and take a walk around. I can show my clients what it's going to look like by giving them that virtual walkthrough. This is what it's going to look like if they change it to that tray ceiling instead. So you've got that value-added information. Not only do you have an estimating tool, it's a 3D model that can share its information with other software packages, including your point of sale system, but it's also giving you visualization as well. So they can visualize the product, they can see the product, and you can edit and change and update the products as you're going through and creating your bill of materials. What I'd like to do now is allow you to ask any questions that you want to about using Envisioneer as an estimating takeoff product. In your GoToMeeting console on the right-hand side, you have the ability to chat in any questions that you have. I'll be able to see those questions and be able to answer those live for you here during our webinar. We've also taped today's webinar, so we'll be able to send you a link to that recording. So if you want to share it with other people in your organization, you can do that as well. But please take your time now to ask any questions in the GoToMeeting console, and I'll be able to answer those questions for you. I'm just going to scroll into my GoToMeeting list and look for our first questions. First question is it only taking in PDFs? No. If you missed the very first part of the webinar, when we import in We can import in a PDF. We can bring in a DWG and a DXF file. And we can also bring in JPEGs. So if someone even brings you a scanned image, they just did a napkin sketch themselves and saved it as a JPEG. What you can do is you can bring that in just like we brought the PDF in. And in that dialog box, I'll just bring in this one as well, bring it in again. You have the opportunity, remember, to pick scale. So even if they drew something by hand, we can calibrate that hand sketch by using that pick scale button to be able to pick the scale between two known points, and then it'll calibrate the entire drawing. So even a simple sketch can be brought in and used. You don't have to bring in a drawing either. We do allow you to bring in and import a PDF and a CAD file and a JPEG, but you can simply start drawing as an example as well. So if I just pick on this wall tool and I tell it that I want to use this time a 2x6 vinyl siding, left click off to the side here, you can see that I'm still drawing walls. By using those dimensions that appear, I can type in, look down at the bottom of my screen, distance and direction down here. I can type in dimensions as well. So I could type in 20 feet and hit enter. And it would draw a 20-foot wall. So I can point and click and sketch out myself, not bringing in a PDF as a basis for that either. I'll just eliminate that. So I hope that helped, not just a PDF, but DWG, DXF, JPEGs, and just simply drawing yourself as well. Okay, next question. What is the process to incorporate our point of sale SKUs? Excellent question. So each one of these elements in the catalog, if I click on a window as an example, under that quantity tab, they all have a SKU number associated to them and a unit of measurement. That's what we need from your point of sale system, the SKU number and units of measurement. So from your point of sale system, you're able to export a list in a CSV or an Excel format. From that Excel format, we can reformat the way those values are, and we can import into our catalog items. So you get an export from your point of sale. It'll give me all of your SKU numbers, everything right down to the bubble gum that you have at the cash register. I take that list and I format it so that we can read it in Envisioneer, and I import it into our catalog. So this catalog then has your SKUs in it. Here at CADSoft, we do that as a service. We'll build your catalogs for you. You can do it yourself. There's how-to videos up on our YouTube channel that show you how to reformat that data. But we also do that as a service for you because we know it's time consuming and we have the know-how and we've done it, and we can do it quickly and efficiently for you. So we can build that catalog for you as a service and bring in all of your SKUs. Because we have your SKUs from that export that you did from your point of sale, that's how we match up going back. When we come back here to quote generator and generate a quote, when we export these values back out to your point of sale system, it has to be able to recognize that SKU number and that unit of measurement. Because we built your catalog from that export, when we send it back, file, export this data, and send it back to your point of sale system, it recognizes those, it marries them together, and brings it into your point of sale system. If it doesn't recognize something, it won't allow it in. So you can't just create SKUs on the fly. It has to recognize and keep it pure from your point of sale system. So again, the question was, how do we bring in the SKUs from their point of sale? Export it out of your point of sale system, and then we're going to import that in. That export, we'll have to reformat it. It does need to be in a certain format to be brought in. There's how-to videos. We can send that to you, and we can do that as a service for you as well. Okay, next question. Let me look back at my list. Just trying to read this. What if we bring it in at the wrong scale? Great question. So we give you the ability when you're bringing in the PDF, we have all of those. I'm just going to bring this one in again. Scale factors here. But what if you skipped over that and you brought it in at the wrong scale and you realize, oh no, I've got this entirely at the wrong scale. And I've already built my entire model and I built it at an 1/8 inch scale when it should have been a 1/4 inch. And all of these values that I brought in are wrong. See how I can click on these walls and dimensions appear? If you brought it in at the wrong scale and you created it and it's all wrong, you can click on these dimensions. So if this was brought in at 18 feet instead of 32, you can click on that and change that value to be whatever you need it to be, and the walls will move and change for you. Or you could just start over to make sure that you've got it in at the right scale. That's why we bring it in that PDF file there when you have it in that dialog box to check that scale. Most important thing to do. But not all's lost. You can click on all these walls and change them if you need to, if you've noticed too late that you've brought it in at the wrong scale. Next question. Will the video recording be available later? Yes, it will. So I've recorded today's session. We're going to put it up on a YouTube page for you, and we will send you out the link to that video so that you can watch it again and go through the process of seeing everything that we did. We'll also send you links to other videos. Every day we do a new daily tool tip. We've been doing that since COVID started in February. We've created brand new tool tips every day, and we'll share those with you as well. You can get them up on our YouTube page, and you can register on our YouTube page so that you'll be getting those going forward as well. That looks like it is all the questions that we have so far, but I'll leave this open for 1 more minute just in case someone has a further question that I'll be able to answer for you. But again, we'll be sending you this recording so you can watch it again. And if you have any questions, never hesitate to contact us, and we can send you information or do a private webinar for you and your team as well. So if this is something you want to present to your team and you have specific questions about your point of sale system, the type of plans that you get in, we can do a private one for you as well. One more question was up. Let me just go back to my page. How would I send the plan information to my manual truss manufacturer? If you have a manufacturer of trusses, we can export the file format, and it depends on what file format they're using. If I take this entire plan and I export it out, and I'll use my tech as an example, we'll send this out in the MXF file format that my tech will receive it in. What they do is they look at the shape of the roof. They'll take that 3D geometry that's part of this plan that we've created, and they'll automatically use that to place the trusses in it. So it gets sent out as that MXF file. If they're not using my tech and they're using a different format, we'd have to know what that format is. So if you could send us that format that your truss manufacturer is using, we can see if we can export it out in a format that they can read. What my tech does is it takes the entire model, walls, floors, ceilings, roofs, everything, and they analyze it for the trusses sitting on those bearing walls to make sure everything will work correctly. So I'm sure it would be the same for your manufacturer as well. We just need to know what format that's in. Okay, that looks like it's all of our questions for today. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your schedules to join us for this webinar today. I appreciate you being here. If you have any other questions, I'll be able to answer those for you. Don't hesitate to send an email and we'll answer those for you. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks and goodbye.